All right. Well, welcome everybody. Rudy here. We are just going to be working on a fun little coin today. This is going to be for the local barony. I plan to hand these out as Newcomer tokens. A lot of my work I do is for the SCA, and this will just be a way. One side it'll show the Baron, the barony, and then the other side it'll show the SCA's website, so people can come to an event, see us, and we'll have these to hand out to them so that they can go home and look at the website and make them feel like they're getting something kind of cool out of just visiting. So that's the plan today. But our shield features an axe, a halberd, and the Stioran 10-pointed star. So we'll look at a few cool punches today as well. But this first part is just going to focus on the engraving, getting your die set up, and how to do this from pretty much from start to finish. Ideally, this will be one video, maybe two, but we'll see how today shakes out. So first up, we need to find the center of our die. And there are a couple ways you can do that. We do have things like digital calipers, which that's what I'm going to use today. All we need to do is just set this over to 1/2 inch. And once we've got that set, we can lay out our first lines. So our die stock's 1018 cold rolled steel, 1 inch diameter by 4 inches long. I'm working in the GRS standard ball vise today. It's one of my favorite tools I've ever purchased, so very useful for the work I do. Let's see. I do have the die mounted on a couple of punches, just because there's a screw down there. I don't want to damage that, so I mount my die on a couple of these cheap Harbor Freight punches just to protect that screw down there. But we have our die. We polish this up to 800 grit, and we're going to take this on down to work into a coin. So we have our calipers set at 1/2 inch, and kind of the quick and dirty way to do this is we're going to make a few marks. So since we're set at 1/2 inch, we theoretically can find that center by marking a few marks. And at that intersection, we know is the center of that coin. I'll adjust that lighting here in just a second. All right. So there we go. Now you can see we've got 3 lines, and theoretically at that exact point where they all meet should be the very center of the die. Very simple, quick trick. There are other things you can do. Some people use like a centering punch or something like that to find their centers, which it's equally valid. There's different ways to do it. Now I have to go and find my punch. This one problem is you have so many of these things, you don't know where all your good ones are. All right. I'm just going to use a nice round pellet punch. This pellet punch is just going to give us that center mark here. Can't quite get that focus, but I think you get the idea. Right, and we can just align this, and we can hit that with a hammer and strike that. The camera's right over, so I'm going to pause very quickly, do that, and then we can get back in and we'll start some engraving. Alright, and we're back. So we've marked our center. Maybe a hair off, but that shouldn't be too big of an issue for us today. Alright, and we need to know where our borders are. So we strike on 3/4 inch aluminum blanks. These blanks are actually just washers without holes in them. So if you're ever looking for a cheap source of blanks, they're can go and work with your nearest washer manufacturer, and they should, they'll give you a few weird looks, but I don't think it's anything unusual for them. So we'll take our calipers again. We're going to measure out our first radius here. Alright, we're going to make our first mark at, it'll be an 18mm circle, so that's going to show the very edge of the coin. At least that's the intended edge of our coin. We go out, the blank itself is 19.05 millimeters when you convert it over from inches. But I like to bring it in just a little bit to make sure that all those beads do show up. So I set our calipers to 9. Oh, excuse me, I'm in inches. 9mm to get that 18mm circle. Lock those in. I'll grab my measurement over here. All right. So now the reason we do this center mark is so that we can find those borders. We can mark them nice and accurately. I always double check. Yep, 9. Double check, and we place 1 foot in, 1 foot on the surface, and we can mark out our edge. Now the more that I press here, the easier that this groove's going to be for me to engrave later. So I want to press not too hard. I don't want to go too crazy hard on there, but enough that I get those little pieces coming up. You can see, kind of see them getting a little bit of shrapnel coming out that I can just wipe away very quickly. Alright, so that's our first border. Second border. Let me actually double check. That second border does change, for me at least, on a lot of coins. Usually I'm going to mark it at 12. Let's see if that's what we've got today. I design all my work in Inkscape. Yeah, we're looking at 12 millimeters for the inner border. But I do all my designs in Inkscape. It's a pretty simple to use program. It's a little finicky, but pretty simple to use for my purposes, and it gets that job done. And I can print to scale, which is nice. All right. So again, I'm going to press in here just a little bit to make a nice groove for my graver to find. Now this circle, you notice this circle is getting bigger because I am also pressing into that. Not a big deal. That is going to either be covered up by some other engraving or buffed out, just like how these scratches are going to get buffed out. They look pretty big now, but you know, shouldn't be too shabby later on. We'll be able to get rid of that pretty easily. All right. Let's move on to our engraving. So I'm just going to be engraving in a square. Our square engraver today. Looks like I need to sharpen this guy, so I'm going to do that real quick. Alright, we're back. I'm going to adjust this just a little bit so it's a little bit more comfortable for me. We're going to start our first cut. So we do have a heel on this. That heel's going to help us get our angles all right. And I'm just going to lightly find where that tip just goes in. Now that I know people are watching, though, I'm going to probably get it right on off. We'll see. We'll move on down just a little bit. There we go. So like I said, we've got that. Just that little groove for us to find. We'll make it a bit deeper with the graver. And there's a nice cut. not too bad. So let me adjust that lighting for you again. So you can see where I've cut, it's much deeper versus where it was just the tip of those dividers here. Let's keep it going. And so I don't want to put a whole lot of power behind this. I don't want to flex my arm. Oh, and we're a little off. That's okay. I don't want to flex because the harder I push this, of course, the deeper the groove's that going to be. The deeper the groove is going to be, excuse me. And if I'm, pushing extra hard to make it go faster, or just because I'm pushing hard, we're going to mess up our groove, and like you saw me skid right out of that groove. Just more cleanup later. So slow it down, take it easy. All right, first time around, it's a little uneven. So we're going to go around one more time in the same direction, and then we're going to go back around probably in the opposite direction just to help even out these cuts. But I do like getting those nice long burrs there. Makes me feel like I'm doing something right. And these techniques are medieval. They are something we see on medieval coins very often. Even on Roman coins, going back, we do see center dot, and a lot of our evidence is because we can actually see these. There are some coins that we see that were put on like a lathe or something, and they have a different kind of dot, but we can tell which ones are our layout dots because these are perfectly circle around this main center. So it is something that we see. It is a medieval technique. Probably also the caliper trick. I imagine they don't have something super accurate to measure out. And all their coins were a little bit different sizes, so you couldn't really standardize something like that. Alright, and so we're getting down to the bottom of our groove here. Ooh. Now you can see I was pushing too hard. Skidded right out of that circle. So, no big deal. That'll just be some cleanup for later. That's going to be some extra time at the sandpaper for me. So, we'll go back and cut it the other way so that my groove can continue without going into that wrong cut. Alright. Okay. So, we have an okay start here. There we go. Like I said, I'll go around 2 or 3 times until I feel it's pretty even, or I get some of the worst of the wobbles out. We got 1 or 2 wobbles in there, but honestly, most of that is hidden by the pellets that we're going to put over this. So, if you mess up, it's not too bad. Stuff can be hidden by punching, and it's not too difficult to do. So, same thing on the inner. We're just going to find our groove. We're just going to carefully push. I definitely don't want to repeat of our outer circle in here because it's a little harder to hide these. So by laying out that groove, I feel like it's easier to stay in that groove and cut. You can feel when you're in and out of it. Now, you can see, Got some more cuts in there. We've got our nice long burr. So these are nice and sharp. So if you're gonna knock them out, I like to just do a quick dig with the graver. Granted, you can break your tip doing that, so just be careful. Or if you feeling brave, you can just brush it away with your finger and probably bleed all over your die. So it happens. Alright, so let's go ahead. We'll go one more time around. Now that our groove is a bit deeper, we shouldn't have to worry as much. I am trying to keep this center for you. I know it's a little difficult to see. My initial reaction is always to pull it towards me, and I'm probably going to flip this video, so I'm facing this way. What I plan to do is flip this video because it's the phone's over here, so the bottom of the video is down here. We'll flip it and we'll see. There we go. Beautiful. A nice long burr. Makes me feel like I did a good job. Makes me feel like I did something right. I'll just even out. There's some little mountains and valleys in there that I can see, so I'm just going to cut those real quick. Alright. There we go. We've got our circles engraved, and we will probably do a double bead border on these. So bead border out here and a bead border in here. Alright, so next up, it's actually going to be a design transfer. So like I said, we've got our design right here, this little baronial design, and you can see I have a little, so since the design is black, I put a little white circle in there for me to determine where that center point is. So what I do is I actually take a pin and a piece of paper. So I'm going to poke the piece of paper right on that center point, and that will allow me to make sure I can keep this straight on the die. So 1 second here. Alright, and we're going to do an acetone transfer. So I'm sure there's some of you out there who are cringing at how I do this, but you know, it works. Gets the job done. It works with any regular old laser printer. That's really all I need. So I like to shine light from the underside, so that way we can actually see where that edge is going to line up. So you can see right now I'm lined up. I can tell right there I'm off. Get that to focus on there for you. So, but you get the idea. So I can tell when I'm off, I can tell when I'm on, and this hole in the center should theoretically line up with the hole over here. And that should let me know if number one, if I poked my paper in the right place, and if my die center is actually centered. So we're just going to use acetone. This is the, you want as pure stuff as you can. I get the one that has panthenol in it. I don't know why. This is the one that's normally yellow. It kind of smells like I mean, you shouldn't smell acetone, but it makes me think of the fake banana smell. So maybe that's my imagination, but it's the one that I use, and this is the one that I've actually seen the best results with, other than 100% pure acetone. I get this because it's normally on sale, maybe a little cheaper than the actual pure acetone, but it'll vary. Your mileage may vary. So we're going to line up our our little pin. We're going to line up our paper. And we'll line it all up on the light. This just helps me ensure that I've got a nice centered die. Now you can see my paper lines up, and I can hold this down. All right. Now with my other hand, I do have a acetone, some acetone on a paper towel. We're just going to press that onto our paper. All right. So this is for the acetone transfer. What it basically does is the acetone is going to melt that toner that's within the ink. Basically, it's just going to leave it on the surface of our die and leave us with some good guides to use. So we'll take this off. Now I do have these lines on here as well that just help me center and find that center, and they also are a good gauge to see if the acetone's finished melting or not. So we need another second here. There seems to be a point where when the acetone is evaporating, that is the point to pull the paper off. So you can see the paper, see the design through the paper. So it looks like it might actually be a hair off, but we should be okay. All right, got a little bit of the paper on there, but that's okay. So let me block some of that light so it's not doesn't translate very well to the video, but I can definitely say that this is looking pretty good for my needs. I can see everything, it's all nice and lined up. I don't really need this big black bar here, so we can kind of work that away. What I want are the outlines, that's what I need. So I'm going to rotate that so you can see, and you can see our design is there.